Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we take a whole stack of source materials. We're talking articles, personal accounts, research notes, and we really just pull out the most vital, the most human, and sometimes the most legally confusing details to get you completely up to speed.
And today, we are definitely diving into something that feels like it's straight out of a movie, but it is startlingly real. We're looking at the story of Daria Camfield.
It's a story that poses, I think, one of the ultimate what-if questions. What happens when the husband you grieved, the husband you buried, the husband you moved on from?
What happens when he comes back 3 years later
Yeah.
and you're remarried? You have a new family.
The sources we've compiled for this deep dive, they just paint an unbelievably vivid picture of Daria's journey. We're going to track her life from this, deeply dedicated missionary in a remote jungle village.
All the way to this complicated modern life back on the Kansas prairie. The sources really outline this incredible survival story, these extraordinary emotional choices, and a truly bizarre legal quagmire.
That's the perfect word for it. It's a quagmire that happens when two completely valid marriages suddenly impossibly collide.
So our mission today is to synthesize this whole narrative. We really want to follow the emotional logic that led to Daria's choices, unpack Nathan's incredible story of survival, and this is key for a deep dive, analyze the really surprising legal resolution.
A resolution that ultimately hinged on an impossible personal choice.
And a profound spiritual sacrifice. It's one of those stories where, law gives you a framework, but it's faith that really provides the answer.
Okay, let's get into this. We have a lot of ground to cover, and we're starting about as far from Kansas as you can possibly get.
Our story begins deep, deep in the South American rainforest. The sources identify this place as the village of Tumane. And for Daria and her husband Nathan, this place, despite all its obvious dangers, it really became their home.
And the dangers were not small. The sources call Tumane a sanctuary, but then in the next breath they're describing poisonous spiders, huge snakes.
Aggressive amphibious creatures. I mean, it's not exactly a walk in the park.
Not at all. But for Daria, who came from the Kansas prairie, she embraced it. She felt a connection there that she just hadn't found back home.
And that tension, right, between this profound danger and this profound sense of home, that's the emotional baseline for their entire life there. Daria and Nathan, everyone called them Nate, were evangelical missionaries.
And they were committed to living as the Tumane people, not just among them.
Right. Nate was the medicine doctor.
Mm-hmm.
He was there healing bodies, trying to heal souls. It was his lifelong dream. And Daria, who had left college, she found her purpose there teaching Bible classes.
Crucially, their whole ideology was about not Americanizing or civilizing the Tumane. It was about immersion.
You could see that commitment in the details of their daily life. They lived in a traditional stilted hut, and the sources give us these little arguments they'd have.
Right, like Daria complaining she wanted a sewing machine.
Exactly. And Nate resisting, famously refusing to even bring in a simple propane cooker. He saw it as giving in to his spoiled American upbringing.
Even though one of the villagers actually had a stove.
Right. So that level of sacrifice really shows you how deep their belief system ran.
And it sets the stage perfectly, doesn't it? Because that radical commitment to service is what leads directly to the tragedy at the heart of our story.
It's the ultimate test of their commitment. Nate, the medicine doctor, he gets summoned to this distant village called Chicoro.
And the news is awful. A devastating disease, they don't even know what it is, has just swept through Chicoro. It's already claimed 20 lives.
Mostly children. So his skills, his medical knowledge were needed right away.
But Daria's resistance to this trip wasn't just, a wife being worried. It was based on very real medical history.
It was. The trip itself was brutal. A full day of trekking just to get to the Guaviare River, then days of travel upriver. Nate thought he'd be gone a week.
But Daria was terrified because Nate had almost died from dengue fever before, and they both knew that a second infection, especially with a different strain, could be so much worse.
She pleaded with him. The sources say she forced him to look at her. She was asking him, how can you possibly know what this disease is without even testing for it?
She saw it as a reckless mission.
It was. But Nate, feeling the weight of his calling, he used the one justification she couldn't argue with.
He told her, God did not bring us this far to refuse help to those who need it.
And that just silenced her. The sources note she wanted to argue with the we part of that sentence, knowing it was his call, but you just can't argue with that kind of conviction.
And this fight, this conflict, it creates this deep emotional rift right before he leaves.
Dinner was eaten in what the sources call a chilled silence. It's this moment of profound disconnection.
Which makes what happens next, the reconciliation, so much more powerful and ultimately so much more tragic.
Yeah. Nate, sensing the tension, he coaxes Daria onto his lap and then leads her out into the clearing. He wants to show her the night sky,
And the description is just beautiful. A flawless canopy of navy velvet.
sewn with a million glittering sequins. Nate had been studying the constellations to pass the time, and he points out the Virgo constellation.
And one star in particular, Spica.
Yes, Spica. He gives her this mission, this tangible link to him. He says, when you look at the sky every night I'm gone, find that star. I'll be looking at it and thinking how much I love you.
It's more than just a sweet goodbye. It was meant to be an anchor for her.
Right.
A physical point of connection to get her through a week of anxiety.
A beautiful promise. A shared point in the universe.
That sadly failed to hold.
Because that week turned into 10 days. Then almost 2 weeks. And the panic just grows and grows. Daria is desperately trying to make contact on the radio.
And when she finally gets through to a man named Bob Warrington from the mission in Bogota, this is where the political reality of the region really comes into play.
Right, Warrington isn't just worried about a disease or a difficult journey. He voices this unspoken fear that Nate is in danger from, well, from other people.
From violence.
Exactly. He confirms that paramilitary units were thick in the coca-growing regions on the Rio Guaviare. This was a notoriously dangerous area.
A place where an American doctor poking around in remote villages could easily be seen as a threat.
And could be killed and just discarded, no questions asked. So Nate was in danger from disease, yes, but also from the geopolitical situation he'd walked into.
And then the confirmation comes. It's brutal. It's definitive. The 2 young Kimone men who guided Nate, Kimiko, and Tados, they return.
And the news is delivered in the local language, 2 words Daria would recognize instantly. Fogorio
Fire
and De Fuerto.
dead.
Those 2 words just shatter her world. They tell her the whole story. The chief of Chicoro, in this moment of just complete desperation and fear, he came to believe the sickness was caused by evil spirits.
And to destroy the spirit.
He ordered the sick hut to be burned to the ground, with 28 people inside, including Nate.
Kimiko and Tados just confirm it. No one lived, all burned. It's this grotesque, agonizing closure.
And then comes the final, undeniable piece of physical evidence. Tados hands her Nate's gold medical school watch, the one he never ever took off, except to bathe.
And its face is black with soot, the Roman numerals just obliterated by the heat.
That physical object, covered in the evidence of his fate.
Right.
That's what finally allowed her to process it, to begin the agonizing journey of moving forward.
And that journey from that jungle hut and that soot-covered watch all the way back to the American Midwest, it's a profound dislocation, physically and emotionally.
At first, Daria is just numb. She submits to the Timone rituals for widows. Péti and Casme, 2 women from the village, they wash her body, they braid her hair. It's the way of easing her through the initial shock.
But the real shock, the culture shock, comes when she gets back. The sources describe her landing at Kansas City International Airport as a sensory assault.
Yeah. She had been living in profound natural silence, darkness, and suddenly she is hit with fluorescent lights, the smell of industrial detergents, perfumes.
And the constant mechanical jangle of modern life.
She felt, and the sources quote this, more a foreigner in the U.S. than she ever did in Timone. Her old life, her home, now felt completely alien.
The finality of Nate's death is really solidified back on home turf. There's a memorial service in the little clapboard country church.
And the search party's findings are made official. They confirm the scene, the burned hut, the mass grave, with over 24 bodies, many of them children.
This gives Daria a sense of closure, but it's a closure mixed with so much pain, especially for Nate's parents, Jack and Vera.
Right. They had been against the mission trip from the very beginning. So for Daria, there's this extra layer of guilt, feeling like she was complicit in them losing their son.
But in the middle of all this grief, Daria is holding on to this profound secret joy.
She realizes she's pregnant.
It's Nate's final gift to her. The sources say she speaks to his memory, promising, "I'll take good care of our baby. He'll know how much you would have loved him."
And that gives her a purpose, a fierce, powerful reason to rebuild her life.
Rebuilding means stability, and stability means a job. Daria quickly realizes that her experience in the jungle, as intense as it was, left her underqualified for the job market in Kansas.
So she's looking for something practical, something with flexibility for a single mom. She applies for a receptionist job at the Bristol Veterinary Clinic.
Because the ad said flexible hours and will train. It sounded like the perfect, low stress way to get back into the workforce.
And this is where she meets Colson Hunter. Cole. He's described as warm, casual, someone who immediately puts her at ease.
He doesn't know she's a widow at first, and when she tells him, his immediate sensitive apology was a mark of respect she really appreciated.
But that simple receptionist job, it turns out to be anything but.
Not at all. The reality of a small-town vet clinic is frenzied, and Daria gets pulled into the action almost right away. On her first day, 2 dogs get hit on the highway.
And Cole is short-staffed. He needs her help in an emergency surgery.
This is such a great detail for understanding Daria's character. She handles it, and she handles it by comparing the intensity of restraining this large, panicked dog
To restraining a hysterical toddler in Colombia who'd sliced their forehead open.
That comparison just shows you. Despite her quiet exterior, her time in the jungle made her incredibly calm under pressure.
She even manages a little dark humor after, joking she was glad they were working on dogs and not hogs. It's a small sign that she's a survivor.
And this high-stress environment, this shared commitment to saving lives, it quickly bonds her and Cole.
But as Daria settles in, the sources talk about this internal conflict, the ghosts and grief. She's constantly trying to balance her past with her new, burgeoning future.
She's fighting to hold on to Nate's memory, his voice, his grin, but sometimes she's dismayed to find that Nate's voice in her memory.
Was the voice of another man. The past is starting to fade into the present.
Her life is stabilizing. She has her daughter, Natalie. She has this job, this connection with Cole, but their relationship has its own shadows.
Big ones. Cole had told her very little about his first wife, Bridget, only that she died in an accident.
But then a colleague, Carla Eldridge, she reveals the town rumor. Bridget committed suicide.
And that's a huge blow. It's something Daria feels she should have heard from Cole himself.
She goes to her mother, Margot Hayden, for confirmation. And Margot confirms the rumor, but also gives her some really powerful advice.
She tells Daria she needs to let go of the guilt she feels for moving on. She gives her permission to just go on with her life.
That advice helps, but the complexity is still there. Daria feels like she doesn't really know who Cole Hunter is.
And they're both carrying so much grief. Hers for a dead husband, his for a wife who may have taken her own life. It makes their relationship incredibly fragile.
But that fragility couldn't stop the inevitable. Their bond deepens, and it all leads to Cole finally asking her out on a date.
And this date is a major turning point. It moves them from being just colleagues to something more.
Cole admits he had a rule about not dating employees, but he tells her she made him rethink that whole rule. He offers to pay for Natalie's babysitter. He's laying it all out there.
And Daria is just consumed by apprehension. The whole boss-employee thing, the fear that it's too soon after Nate, the risk to Natalie if it all goes wrong.
It's a high-stakes decision. The sources mention this quiet, almost ritualistic moment before the date where she nervously takes off her simple gold wedding ring and puts it away.
Trying to put the past away, just for one evening.
And on that date, Cole realizes he has to be completely honest with her. He tells her the full, brutal truth about Bridget.
He says she died from carbon monoxide poisoning in the garage. He admits he still doesn't know if it was an accident or suicide, but he tells her why. She had been grieving the loss of their infant son.
A detail he'd never shared with Daria before.
Cole reveals this deep-seated guilt he carries, this thought that he let her die. He confesses his love for Daria, but you can see the fear in his eyes when she later tells him she's pregnant with his child.
He'd already lost a wife and a child. The thought of losing Daria and this new baby was terrifying for him.
But that complete honesty, that vulnerability, it changed everything for Daria. It cemented their bond through this shared trauma.
It seems like that honesty gave her the foundation she needed. But shortly after they get engaged, she has this moment of, well, spiritual turmoil.
Yeah, a letter arrives. It's from Evangeline Maigret, the elderly former missionary who has served in Timone.
And Evangeline is pleading with Daria to return to the village. She's assuring her that there are still funds available for her support. It feels like a direct call.
It's a huge wake-up call for Daria. She has this sudden, dawning realization that she rushed into marrying Cole without ever really seeking God's direction. She was looking for an answer to her sorrows.
A safe harbor.
Exactly. She realizes she shut God out of her decision-making process when she was grieving Nate. And now she feels this pull to go back.
But she rationalizes her way out of it, right? She tells herself she's paid her dues, that the mission was Nate's call, not just hers. She's safe now. She has a new life.
She's actively dismissing that feeling of duty. But the universe, or maybe Providence, had a much more dramatic way of getting her attention.
That is an understatement. The drama arrives in the form of a telegram. Now you have to remember, telegrams are rare. They usually mean urgent, bad news.
So the tension is already high. And this one is delivered in person to the hunter's house, but it's addressed to Daria Camfield, her old name.
And the news inside is just staggering, delivered in these concise, brutal terms.
Nate is alive.
He didn't die in the fire. He was taken prisoner by a man named Juan Mocoa, someone Nate suspected was involved in drug trafficking. He was held in a village near Chicoro.
He had suffered severe burns, he was sick, but he had been rescued by an American group who, ironically, were also likely traffickers.
Daria's just paralyzed. She hands the phone to Cole to talk to Nate's father, Jack Camfield, and she whispers the one question that just rips her entire world apart.
Who was her husband?
Legally, emotionally, spiritually, in an instant, she is married to 2 men.
And this takes us right into the critical legal part of this story. Cole immediately calls his lawyer, Dennis Chastain, about this unbelievable situation.
And Chastain's initial assessment is crucial. It provides the legal framework that defines the entire resolution.
Okay, so let's break this down. The basic legal concept here is the presumption of death. Usually, a person has to be missing for 7 years before they are legally declared dead.
Which would allow the surviving spouse to settle estates, remarry, all of that. But Nate was only gone for 3 years.
And that's a complication, for sure. But Kansas law, and the sources stress this, it prioritizes another stronger legal principle, the presumption of validity of a subsequent marriage. PVSM, for short.
PVS. Okay, so what does that actually mean? Why is it more powerful than the fact that Nate was gone for less than 7 years?
It's basically common sense law. It presumes that when a couple gets married, in this case Cole and Daria, they did it in good faith, that they had every legal right to marry, and that their marriage is valid.
The law wants to uphold the new family unit.
Exactly. The law strongly prefers upholding the validity of the second marriage. Because dissolving it would destabilize a new family, it could render children illegitimate, and it's a family that was created without any deceit or malice.
So even though Nate was alive, because Daria had what the law considers sufficient documented evidence of his death, the search party, the memorial, the watch, her marriage to Cole is seen as legally secure.
As long as there was no deceit on her part, yes. The source material is very clear on this. The PVSM is stronger than and overcomes the presumption of a previous marriage.
So her first marriage to Nate is just dissolved automatically.
It's dissolved under the law immediately upon the second marriage being validated. No divorce is necessary. Legally, unequivocally, Daria was Cole Hunter's wife.
Wow, that is a fascinating legal safeguard. It's so practical, but from an emotional standpoint, it's just brutally cold.
And speaking of emotional cruelty, Daria then learns that the deepest cut wasn't a legal one, it was personal.
Nate's parents.
Jack and Vera. They had spoken to Nate in the hospital in Bogota, and they deliberately held back information. They never told him Daria had remarried.
And they didn't tell him about Natalie being his biological daughter.
They told him Natalie was Daria's daughter, but they kept Cole's entire existence a secret. The marriage, their new baby Nicole, all of it. They were trying to set up this assumption that Daria and Natalie would just move back in with Nate.
They were trying to preserve the family unit he knew.
They thought they were protecting their son from another devastating shock. But for Daria, it was a monumental betrayal. It forced her to be the one to deliver that final crushing blow.
So the emotional tension just skyrockets. Daria has to face Nate. And their first confrontation in that Kansas City hospital is just gut-wrenching.
She arrives feeling completely disoriented, confused, and just drowning in guilt.
And the reunion is so emotional. When Nate wakes up, his eyes recognize her instantly. He pulls her close. Daria said that he had never been more real to her.
But the reality of his trauma is right there. He's skeletal. He has these severe scars on his forearms from the burns. His voice is weak and raspy.
And it's that physical vulnerability that gives her the strength to speak. She tells him everything. She's married to Cole. She shows him pictures of Natalie and of their new baby, Nicole.
And the shock is just immense. The sources say Nate took it very hard. He becomes so agitated they have to give him a sedative.
Which confirms his parents' fear. They knew how badly this would break him.
And then the aftermath of that, Daria has this breakthrough. A spiritual one. She realizes the dreams she'd been having of Nate walking toward her, that letter from Evangeline Magritte. None of it was a coincidence.
She recognized that she had actively shut God out when she married Cole. She was just desperate for solace, and she grabbed onto Cole as the answer to her sorrows instead of praying for guidance.
It's a moment of real accountability. She sees how her haste, driven by grief, has led to this impossible, painful situation for everyone.
But before any of this can resolve, another crisis hits. Daria goes into premature labor.
Right there at the Camfield house, after visiting Nate, she starts having sharp contractions, there's bleeding.
And Nate, the physician, his training just kicks in. The sight of Daria in distress, it triggers his professional duty.
His compassion just overrides his fury. He stabilizes her. He gets her into the ambulance. In that moment, his identity as a healer is stronger than his identity as a betrayed husband.
Meanwhile, Cole is traveling. He gets the news over the phone from a nurse. Daria's bleeding. They're trying to save the baby.
It's his deepest fear coming true. He's losing his baby, just like he lost his son with Bridget. He just speeds back, not thinking about Nate, but about his own petty resentments and how meaningless they suddenly seem.
Which sets the stage for this impossible introduction. Cole rushes to the hospital. He pauses at Daria's door.
And he sees Nate in hospital scrubs, holding Natalie, and Cole hears his own stepdaughter, Natalie, run into Nate's arms, calling him Daddy Nate.
That moment had to be devastatingly clarifying for Cole. Here's the man who first had Daria's heart, holding Cole's daughter.
Cole then turns, and he holds his own newborn daughter, Nicole Hunter, who the doctors are cautiously optimistic about.
And Daria, from the bed, smiling weakly, she does the unimaginable. She introduces them. Nate, this is Cole. Call Nathan.
The sources say their handshake was driven by anger or possessiveness or sheer terror. It's the ultimate standoff.
But that scene, Natalie with Cole, Cole with Nicole, Daria in the bed, that's what leads Nate to his own profound internal resolution. He sees that Cole has built the family he thought he was returning to.
And this is where he turns to Scripture, specifically to John chapter 12, the verses about a kernel of wheat.
Unless a kernel of wheat must be planted in the soil. Unless it dies, it will be alone, but its death will produce many new kernels.
And this isn't just a quote for him. It's the core of his sacrifice. He sees himself as that kernel of wheat.
So what does that mean exactly? The dying part.
It's about his identity, his calling. If he fights the legal ruling, if he claims Daria and Natalie, he will destroy this new family. He'll cause immense suffering. He'd be preserving his own isolated happiness, his own identity as a husband and father.
But he would kill all the new kernels that have sprouted in his absence.
Exactly. So his choice to step aside, to die, metaphorically, to his marriage, to his fatherhood, is the only way that the new family and his original mission can flourish.
He realizes the right thing to do is the most painful thing he can possibly imagine.
It's the most profound sacrifice in our sources. Nate chooses to return to Colombia. He gives Daria his blessing to stay with Cole. He accepts the legal reality and, more importantly, the emotional reality.
He sees that Cole makes Natalie happy.
And he recognizes that taking Natalie would wrench her from the only family she'd ever known, including her new sister, Nicole. He tells Daria, the right thing isn't always the easy thing.
He gives it all up. His legal claim, his family, his happiness, for them.
And this incredible personal choice is then followed by a public legal affirmation, mostly because the media circus around them had just exploded.
Right. They have to make a statement on the courthouse steps. The judge's ruling is officially released. It confirms Daria's marriage to Cole Hunter is valid under Kansas law.
Nate's father, Jack, reads the legal explanation for the press. In this state, the presumption of validity of a subsequent marriage is stronger than and overcomes the presumption of a previous marriage.
The first marriage is dissolved. No divorce needed. It's final.
But the real statement wasn't legal. It was spiritual. The two men, Nate and Cole, they addressed the media together. Nate tells the crowd their peaceful resolution was possible because we have placed our faith in the Lord Jesus Christ.
Which is a stunning moment. And Cole, his voice quavering, he echoes it. He gives this powerful personal testament to Nate's sacrifice, acknowledging publicly that Nate had set her free to love him and be his wife.
And then, after all that, there's this quiet, profound moment in the car between Nate and his father. Jack Camfield just weeps. And it occurs to Nate that maybe for the first time, his earthly father understands the father heart of a God who watched his only son suffer.
It's that connection again between his father accepting his sacrifice and the larger spiritual meaning. It shows just how deeply everyone had been changed.
Nate's sacrifice brings this painful but true closure. His farewell to Daria and Natalie is just filled with this tender forgiveness. He assures Daria he understands, he forgives her for moving on.
And the emotional core of their whole story is captured in one line from Nate. He confesses, "You were never in the way of my happiness. You are my happiness."
It confirms his decision wasn't about resentment. It was an act of selfless, enduring love, the ultimate act of laying down his life.
And so Daria and Cole move forward. Their love, tested and deepened by all this, is ultimately redeemed.
Their marriage, which was built on that radical vulnerability after Cole confessed his own secrets, becomes incredibly strong.
And Natalie grows up with this unique, powerful legacy. She calls Cole Daddy, but she always knows she has two fathers. She even gets a letter from Daddy Nate, confirming he's happy, he's where God wants him to be, back on his mission.
And this is where the story truly comes full circle. Years later, in the epilogue, we learn that Daria Camfield, Nate's daughter, has returned to Timone as a missionary herself.
She's described as a young woman whose spirit was inherited from the two men she called Daddy. No, three men she called Daddy. Daddy, Daddy, Abba, Father.
That recognition of her identity, born from these two earthly heroes and their sacrifice, it's just so powerful.
And Nate himself, we learn, tragically died of an apparent heart attack 3 months before Daria makes a final visit, years later. His life ended peacefully, fulfilling his original calling.
When Daria visits Nate's second grave in Colombia, she sees the ultimate proof of his choice, that kernel of wheat dying to produce many kernels.
The place where their stilted hut once stood is now a large, permanent church.
Enlarged twice. And it's filled with Tomine people learning God's word. It's the direct result of the seed Nate planted, the sacrifice he made, and the mission his daughter now continues.
The inscription on his gravestone is in the Taimani language, and it quotes the scripture that guided him. "Greater love hath no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friends."
His metaphorical death, surrendering his right to his family, allowed his true purpose to flourish through his daughter. It ensured his legacy in a way that just coming home never could have.
This has been an absolutely astonishing deep dive. I mean, it is just filled with emotional, legal, and spiritual complexity. It's hard to imagine a higher stakes human dilemma.
It really is. It's a remarkable story of how life can force you into these unbelievable corners where the choice isn't between right and wrong, but between different kinds of pain and sacrifice.
We saw the law, Kansas law, provide a framework for stability, even in the face of a miracle.
But the final nugget is that the trauma produced these unexpected gifts. The stability of Daria and Cole's marriage, the sisterhood of Natalie and Nicole, and the renewed mission in Timanoza. Nate's story wasn't just about survival. It was about surrender.
And that leads us to our final provocative thought for you to consider. Nate's life was defined by the calling he shared with Daria, but it was only by laying down his life, by surrendering his rightful claim, that his calling truly flourished and reached its ultimate potential through his daughter's work.
So we have to ask,
Wow.
is profound, selfless sacrifice sometimes necessary, not just for the preservation of a life, but for the ultimate fulfillment of a purpose in the world?
Something to think about as you navigate the complexities and the difficult choices in your own life. Thank you for joining us for The Deep Dive.